Hi, this is my fine arts, intro to fine arts final video. I'm at work, so I'm really sorry about the music. I'm not allowed to turn it down, so Zach Bryan's gonna be screaming in the background. But the very first question is, what is the difference between art and non-art? According to Merriam-Webster, art can be defined as the conscious use of skill and creative imagination, especially in the projection of aesthetic objects. In my opinion, an important part of this definition is the link between skill and creativity. The line between art and non-art to me is largely rooted in the intent. It's easy to look at like Michelangelo's David, for example, and definitively say, yes, this is art. But it becomes a little bit trickier when looking at, say, like a city skyline. The warehouses, for example, that dot the outskirts of most cities were not built to inspire or leave the viewers in awe when they look at it. They're made for production. They serve a purpose, and that purpose is not art. But the Empire State Building, for example, in the exact same city skyline, is iconic, and it's built with an intent, and that intent is to stem the world and be a symbol for that city. And to me, those are very clear depictions of art and non-art, but that's also subjective. You can think that I'm wrong, and that's okay, and that's the beauty of it, that art, although there technically is a definition, there really isn't. But that's mine. But yours can be different, and that's okay. So the second question is, how is seeing art in person instead of in a book different for you? In a word, it's surreal. As I looked up in the Sistine Chapel, it took me so long to realize, like, that is the creation of Adam. That's not a t-shirt or a tote bag. That is the actual creation of Adam that artists worked painstakingly hard on before there was enough technology to safely put them up by that ceiling. And it's crazy. And it's a lot to process in that moment, and it's kind of overwhelming. And I'm still processing that. Like, I saw so much art that changed the world, and it changed society and the way that it functions. And it's just so crazy, especially living in a country where we do have a lot of history. It's just not documented in the way that we saw when we were abroad. And so it's just really surreal to be surrounded by that all the time and realize that this isn't fake, that I'm actually here. And it's just a lot, and I'm still working on it. What do I think about people risking their lives for some of the art that we witnessed? Well, I just mentioned a pretty clear-cut example of someone risking their lives, one, lack of technology, but the bigger one was more societal. For example, like, during a long period of European history, the church was the ruling power. And so people like Botticelli, for example, having to come up with these elaborate fabricated justifications for depicting a nude woman seemed absurd to us, but he needed to protect his career and to protect himself socially. But that mattered to him. Expressing himself through art and through the female form was so important to him and a lot of other artists. And it really changed art for the world, and it changed the way that people express themselves, because art is an intense, amazing avenue for self-expression, and it took that fighting to make it easy for everyone to do it. And throughout history and throughout art history, people fighting to express themselves in that way have changed the society and art in general. And art does not always need to invoke emotion to be good. I mean, most of the art I make doesn't have any meaning at all, but people still think it's good. But it doesn't, I'm a dog myself, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. But the art that does matter to us is stuff like that. It's stuff that puts some skin in the game. Self-expression is just a necessity for existence in this life. You need to express yourself, and art for a lot of people is very valuable in that. Explain moments where you've experienced wonder. I pretty much discussed this question the entirety of my honors paper. Just like walking through like the Uffizi, for example, and seeing all these depictions of women in the Renaissance as they look like living, breathing people that live a healthy, happy life. Seeing that as someone that grew up in a society and culture, at least in like the early 2000s, that valued skinniness and thinness as an equation to beauty, that was just so intense. And then also coming into high school during the time of like the Kardashians and like Slim Thick BBL, and I just never felt like my natural body was what was beautiful, because it's never what was depicted as being beautiful. And then walking through there, I'm like, I see myself. Obviously that's not me, but I see myself in these women, and it was just so emotional for me. I would look at sculptures in the middle of like a garden and I'd be like, they have stomach rolls. Sorry, had to do my job for a second, but like I was saying, it was just so, for me personally, it was like my moment of wonder really from that all was, how did we get here? Like, obviously I know history, and I know that no beauty, I mean, like thickness does no longer equate to like divinity and wealth and health anymore. It's the opposite, but I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So a lot of my wonder came from, why are healthy bodies no longer celebrated? They were once the epitome of beauty and divinity and opulence, and now they're like demonized almost. It's crazy. So my wonder was just, how do we get there? And that's kind of what I tried to explore in my honors paper. I was also on a flight and kind of overwhelmed, so I'm sorry if it didn't come across that way, but that's what my wonder was. And then the fifth and final question was, how do you think your trip and your experience will affect your future self, and why? I kind of started this whole like being on the go thing at 17. Like, I started traveling and stopped living with my family at 17. So this wasn't my first time doing study abroad. I had lived in Denmark and London, and then I immediately went from Kansas to Texas, and then I didn't go home this summer, I went abroad, you know? So I've been doing this, but it doesn't mean that this wasn't special or anything like that. It was a piece of that puzzle. Studying and traveling and cultural immersion has been a huge part of me coming into adulthood and me coming into myself and figuring out who I am. So this was part of that. This was a big part of that. At first I was just like, this is fine, it's gonna be a breeze, but I'd never done it with a giant group of people, and like, it continued to broaden my worldview, but in a very different way than everything else. It was really nice to experience it with a group and with professors that led us through it and gave us like an educational experience to it. And it wasn't just me goofing around. I was actually learning a lot from it, which I love because I'm kind of a nerd. So it was amazing to like actually have that educational aspect to it as well. And also it's just really sweet to see everyone figure out the stuff that I figured out, but like I don't want to get emotional, but like they were with friends, like they had people that cared about them. It was just really sweet for me to see them figuring out those things that I figured out in like a supportive environment, because I didn't really get that when I was abroad for the first time, which is why I transferred to London. So I just really liked seeing the people that I became friends with feel open and welcomed in this environment as well. And finally, sorry I didn't submit this earlier. I sent a text to Mr. Davidson kind of explaining right when I got home. Some stuff happened and I wasn't able to submit this, but thank you so much for everything, and hope you guys have a great summer.